Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Universal Journeys Radio with your hosts, Dr. Brenda L. Bates and Donny Winter. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Universal Journeys Radio is about how spirituality intersects with nearly every other aspect of our lives, even when we do not see it or realize it. Creativity and expression are our connections to the spiritual energy many seek to understand, and our identity is forged through this process. Universal Journeys seeks to help illuminate the different intersections between creativity, spirituality, and identity in order to empower and enlighten. Tonight, our topic is Donny Speaks, Creative and Psychic Imprints. And if you would like to participate in our conversation, our call-in number is 347-850-8292. Brenda, don't make me laugh.
I couldn't, and welcome, everyone.
How are you, Brenda, dear?
Good. You sounded so enthused with that.
Well, I was trying to say it with a straight face, but I rarely say anything with a straight face, so.
It's funny that you're trying to say it with a straight face because no one can see you anyways.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. But you can tell by inflection when someone is smiling.
Yes, you can.
Oh, my goodness. We are too funny. I love it.
Hey, we have a good time. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, we always do.
Yes, and that actually kind of leads right into our topic today with creating your space or leaving psychic imprints or creative imprint or however you would like to speak about that or talk about that. So, Donny, take it away.
I thought this would be something interesting to talk about because through our lives, we're always doing, creative things, whether we're, creating art or, writing or music. And sometimes we give these things as gifts to other people. And I think it's very interesting to take into consideration that we all put our energy into creating these things. Therefore, we all leave some form of imprint on these items when the person receiving the gift gets them. And and especially like with you, Brenda, since you've had a lot of experience recently with your new business and creating items for people, I mean, I think it'd be an interesting reflection to talk about what you are feeling, what you were trying to do energetically when you're creating these things. And, of course, I was planning on sharing my own experience as well.
Well, I could tell you when I first bought the business, I bought it from someone else who had many, many years with the equipment and the programs in the chairs and desks and everything else. And their psychic imprint or their energetic imprint is on all of these. Well, when I first started out, it took me about 2 months to actually get it to where it's flowing with me now. And I do mean everything. So it was a challenge. I mean, things are not going well, and it should have been, what should have been simple, take over and do was chaotic and hard. So with that, like I said, after a couple months, it starts to smooth out, and right now, I have imprinted my energy upon these items. And the other thing, too, is not only was it that with the stuff that I bought, but the space that I actually helped to build here for my office. And that in itself had to be re-energized or energetically swapped over, switched over to my energy as well. And I finally got it the other day. It finally feels the way I need it to feel, and that's comfortable and energetic and creative. My creative abilities are a little bit different than the former owners and the one owner that owns this place here as well is. And so it took me a little while, and I didn't know how to do it. I just know that it was not me, and so I just had to put my own energy into it and create the beautiful energy that it is now.
Exactly. And, and I can completely attest to that, too. That's a similar experience to my own. When I'm creating something, here's a way to think about it. We've done a show talking about filling a space with your own energy, like your own creative energy. Think of these items as a space of themselves. Like these are little spaces that we're filling our creative energy into, and we're giving them to people. Before we continue our own reflection of our own experiences, I figured I would provide everyone a definition of a psychic imprint or creative imprint, and I got this from thefringedweller.com, which is centered on a book by Monica Holy, and she says, a psychic imprint is an echo of an emotion, an emotional memory of an event that occurred by those who experienced it, and of course it involves other things too. The natural environment almost acts like a sponge recording and playing back the energy, the environment, of course, or, the item itself. Let me see here. Basically, these different environments contain these echoes of the people that were once in them or the things that were once in them. And when we go into those environments or when we touch those items, we become connected to those individuals who shared that item or space. And so it's something that can be a really good thing, and it's something that can also have some negative repercussions.
And that's why I very seldom take on anybody else's items or things because of that purpose or that reason right there, because it's not all good, and it can be a challenge on switching up. Just like the person that I bought this business from, I'm sitting in her chair that she normally sits in, and she's been through several bouts of cancer. So I had to try to transform or transmute that particular type of energy so that I could actually feel comfortable here and not so chaotic or not so scatterbrained, because she would have what is called a chemo brain, with it just kind of messes the brain up. So that was something that I had to do. And along with that, there's another book out there, and this is an older book, and it's by Mary Summerrain. And Mary Summerrain wrote a book what's called Phantom Afoot, and she goes into this type of I just lost my train of thought there. Anyhow, she goes into this type of energy and how it reoccurs and things like that. And there are some that the energy has been so either devastating that it's very difficult. It's high energy. It's very difficult to get rid of, and you can't. You can't, because it has to dissipate on its own. And there are places within the United States, such as alongside the Columbia River, that the energy just plays over and over and over and over again. And the reason, or the way that you can tell the difference between that type of energy and energy of ghosts and stuff like that is, or spirits, I should say, is the spirits will at least turn around and say, look at you or something like that. Where this particular type of programming that you're talking about, or that we're talking about, continues as a circuit and just continues on and on and on and on. Another good place to experience this is down in New Orleans. New Orleans is quite interesting because it's been rebuilt several times from the ground up, and the buildings are not all the same height that they were when these things occurred. So you maybe see someone walking through the ceiling, and all you can see is just their feet, which is kind of freaky, because at one time the floor was higher, or the floor was a little lower, or something like that. So, but it just reoccurs. It's a programming. It just keeps going and going and going. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
It's like a recording.
And I also think it's also the same with smaller items too that we give to people. Like it said, it doesn't matter if it's a large space or a small space. It retains this type of, recollection of the energy. And I remember one of the negative experiences that I've had with receiving a gift from someone was 3 or 4 years ago. I was kind of dating this person, and this person had suffered from significant bouts with depression. Like, he was very depressed all the time, and I think that he was also getting treatment for it. So he one day decided to give me this bracelet, And I was like, oh, okay, that's sweet. So I wore the bracelet for a couple days. And after a couple days, I became so lethargic that I could barely even get out of bed in the morning.
Yep.
And I was like, I need to remove myself from this because I had a feeling that's what was causing it. I took it off. I went and I put it away somewhere, like far away, and I started feeling much better. And I realized that kind of depressive energy that person was carrying was, infused into this object. And once this object was given to me, then I started experiencing the same depression, as an echo, and it was very upsetting. So I think it's important for people to remember to be careful with the gifts that you get from people, because you don't know what they were thinking or feeling during, when they were giving the gifts or when they created it. So this leads me to the question, Brenda, of if we are making something for someone else, should we be mindful of what we're thinking and feeling while we do it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why when it's like when drawing, when you're drawing or painting or art, we're developing art, all of our energy and everything else goes into that piece. No matter if it's, something that's chaotic or destructive or beautiful or passionate or whatever, the time that you are doing that piece and the energy that you are at that particular space and time while you're doing that is put into that particular object. So when I see beautiful art and stuff like that, you could tell energetically. I'm looking at it physically, but I'm also feeling it energetically. So if that's something that appeases me, then I know that's done with love or sincerity or whatever. But if I'm looking at something that looks kind of freakish or chaotic and stuff like that, I can feel that energy as well. Now, I could tell you that if that individual did it with love and passion, and I could feel that, and I would have a different feeling to me, and I would probably either like it, So, but you have that. That's like when people make Afghans. My mother used to make Afghans and, rugs and stuff like that, along with several of my aunts. And every time that they would do it, it was a relaxing thing, and they would put that love and everything else that they don't even realize as they're doing it. And when it was given away, that love would go with that item to that person, and then they would feel comfortable and comforted and loved. Now, that's like with me, with my business. And when I create things, I purposely put love and good intention into those items. Like the thing that I made for you, Donny. There was a lot of love that went into that.
Definitely.
So I'm very aware of what I put into my mental thought in the way I am, or at that particular time. I'm very aware of that because I don't want any negativity to go out there. If anything, when I'm doing something, I want healing, I want love, I want compassion, I want passion. Whatever it is that individual needs, that's what you put into it. Now, I'll grant you, not everyone is going to receive, or you're not going to know who the individual is that you're going to give this stuff to, or who might get it. But just putting love and passion into it, because it is your passion, and they will pick up on it. That's like healing cloths and healing stones, and it, just as long as it's not manufactured like a assembly line, you have energy in it. Now, I can tell you too, there are certain books that you can get that you can tell is divinely guided because of the way it resonates when you receive it. Even though that person wrote a manuscript, his energy is that energy that he oh my gosh, what do they call it? Yeah, it's that, or like a channeling type of thing. You have that, and it goes with each book. I can give you an example. Oh my gosh, I forgot it. It's called Lessons from the Source. The book is Lessons from the Source. I'm lost of brain here today.
Me too.
But the book is called Lessons from the Source, and I could tell when I first received the book His name is Jack. Anyhow, so I could tell that this was a channeled book. This was inspirational. This was truth. This was from the source, because that energy from those words, even though they were typed many, many times, was still there, and it resonated.
Mm-hmm.
That's how important it is for us to realize that when we're giving gifts away, don't put your negative energy in it. Make sure it's positive so that people who receive it will be uplifted so they can enjoy it. I've had one time I received a crystal from someone, and I put it in my hand, and it felt like it burned my hand. I had to let it go. And one of my friends at the time, who I was just getting into this, she said that has some really bad negative energy in it, and that's why it sort of kind of burnt you. And so we put it in, or she put it in salt, a big old canister of salt, and left it there for a while. And the impression that I received from that crystal at the time that it burnt me was this individual who had sexually abused and killed a young girl.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it wasn't good. So that's an example. That's an example of what can happen, because it was the owner's crystal that did that I had.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, the thing is, people don't realize that these types of imprints can be left on more than just gifts. Like, if you receive, like, books from someone, like, older books definitely retain a lot of, you know, psychic energy, especially if they've been passed between, you know, dozens and dozens of people over time. And the thing is, you know, a person that needs to be conscious of that type of thing, because if you're going to invite that into your environment by, you know, keeping it in your place of residence, then you need to be aware of, like, how to fix these types of things. And it's interesting that you brought up that that salt bath idea, Brenda dear. My question for you is, how do we cleanse these things? Like, if we, like, receive books from someone that seem to be stopping with this energy, or if we receive something like a piece of furniture from someone who's had a lot of negative energy, what do we do to cleanse those types of things that you would not normally think one should cleanse?
Well, it is with books is very, very hard, because you can't soak them in water, and you can't put them in salt, and you can't do a lot of things with it, except for maybe send it healing energy to release that particular type of energy. I had a book that was given to me. It was a very, very, very old book. And when I picked it up, I had to set it aside and put it away somewhere where I couldn't get it. I mean, and it's still there.
Oh, wow.
So, but like the chair and this particular equipment, I just had to put more of my energy into it. I had to, you know, balance out the energy and make it mine. And I did that by several different ways. I used sage to smudge quite a little bit. I used frankincense. I burnt raw frankincense and just fumigated this whole place. I mean, you would think that you were in a cloud of it, and I wasn't a cloud of it. But frankincense raises the energy. So as it raises the energy in one item, it raises in there all the items. So I've had to do that a couple of times. I just resaged yesterday, just to make sure that I didn't bring any negativity in here, and I get rid of anything that I may have brought down with me. So I got rid of it all, and saging does that quite a bit. So sage, it's interesting about sage, because most people believe it has to do with cleansing things. And that's been a misnomer for a very long time for the Native Americans. It's been a joke on white people, actually. And I learned that when I was down. Yeah, I learned that when I was down in Arkansas with a gentleman that I know called Lee Standing Bear. He is the guardian, if you want to call it, of Manataka, the sacred area down there in the mountains. And he told me about it, and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. What you're really doing with sage is you're just not cleaning it. You're asking the ancestors to come in and help you. And to me, that's even stronger. That's more powerful, because when you're going around from corner to corner and in all the corners and the cracks and crannies and stuff like that, you ask the ancestors to help you to clean this out and to help harmonize and different things like that. And that helps. I mean, but you're really bringing the ancestors in when you do that. And so it's not just cleansing. You're asking the ancestors. And be respectful when you do that. That's a big thing. If you're not respectful when you do that, it's going to be chaotic. But for the most part, it is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. And I think at least for me, the easiest way to, rid something of negativity is just by, like we were saying earlier, putting our own energy into it. I mean, like we were talking about when we did the show about creating your own space, you have to, you put your own energy into your own space. If you have an object, let's use a book, for example, that is really old, has been passed around between dozens of owners, many of which have suffered from depression or violence or whatever. If you put your own energy into it, that negative energy is just going to, expel, because it's not going to have anywhere else to go. Granted, there are different situations and exceptions that can happen, but that's besides the point. But the thing is, when I think of these objects, they are like sponges or containers. They sit like a book will sit on a shelf and just absorb the energy of the environment that it's in until someone comes along and changes that, either changes the environment by putting the book in a different place or by focusing on it enough to just, expel that, nastiness in it,
Right, because everything has or is made up of molecules and atoms. Now, before we go any further, I would like to bring our guest in here. So hold on just a minute. Our caller. Hello, caller.
Is that me?
That is you, Danny.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, Donny.
How are you?
I'm good, Donny. How are you?
I am dandy.
Oh, good. I love dandy. Dandy Donny.
Yeah.
That has a certain ring to it, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Yes, it does. So, with this, Jane has also experienced some of this stuff as well with the different energies. And so we all have experienced something like this that we have to either transmute, get rid of, or sometimes you can even embrace it, which is kind of neat, because if you have some older person who has been really cool and have great energy, and it's like you just embrace it, you just do, and it's beautiful. And that's one thing too. When I give things away, it has my imprint, my energy imprint in it. So when the individual gets it, sometimes I can feel that energy being sucked in, which is kind of weird. Most people don't feel that, but I do feel that. What about you guys?
When it comes to, on the earlier point when you were talking about embracing energy, and specifically, I do that when I get only specific items. When it comes to plants, for example, I immediately embrace that energy, because plants naturally rarely, contain negative energy, because they are always going through that photosynthetic cycle. They're always cleansing themselves, and they're absorbing and, expelling energy. So when I get a plant like that, I embrace the energy of the plant itself, but when it comes to the container of the plant, that's a different story. Sometimes I've had instances where I've had to repot a plant because the pot itself was damaged, not necessarily physically, but on a creative, spiritual level. And if it is damaged like that, then it could affect the growth and the health of the plant, not to mention the health of the environment that it's in.
Well, think about it. The pot is an inanimate object.
Mm-hmm.
The plant isn't. Now, have you ever noticed in a negative person's house whether or not they have plants or not?
Wait, could you repeat that one more time? You kind of fizzled out there.
Have you ever noticed in a negative person's house, are there plants in it?
In most,
9 times.
In most, I have noticed that they have not had plants.
Yeah, you know why? Because the plants can't survive in that negative energy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, I mean, that negative energy almost acts like, I always, and you've known me to use this image frequently, I equate negative energy with like tar, with something sticky, something that is difficult to wash off. If a plant is in an environment like this where there's that tar energy everywhere, it's going to smother it. I mean, it has to be able to breathe. It has to be able to circulate. So if it can't do that, then it's not going to live. And I think it's the exact same concept with people, because if we put ourselves in an environment where we are being exposed to that smothering energy, well, guess what? We're not going to feel like we're living. We're going to just feel like zombies, basically.
That's true. I have someone in the chat room, tarot readings and talk. They say, I don't have any plants, but I'm not negative. I need to get some plants, LOL.
Well, just because you don't have plants doesn't mean that you are a negative person necessarily, because not everyone can deal with plant energy in their environment. We all are attuned to different forms of energy. If that energy doesn't mesh with you, then you need to have things in your environment that mesh with you. But we're talking about the people who try to, well, and it's more than just energy too. Obviously, a plant needs water and sunlight and all of that jazz. But
right.
There was this older lady I knew once who loved gardening, and she had plants in her house all the time, and I was even taking care of her plants for a while, but they were still dying, and I was like, well, what the hell? Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, it's not like I was born yesterday. And and I realized, I was like, oh my God, it's the energy in here that's kind of making the plants, wither away, because I mean, they can't breathe through that tar-like energy. And she was one of those people who always had that victim complex, where something was always wrong. They always felt like they were being victimized by everyone else. And because of this, she started, putting off this energy that started affecting the environment around her.
Right. And just think, when she moves from that spot or that place, that negative tar energy is going to be seeping, or has seeped into all of the rest of the walls and everything else that was there, the floor, the ceiling, the whole 9 yards, the whole house. So that's why it's good when you move into a new place that you actually paint and clean up, and so, because then you can get rid of some of that ookie-gookie stuff. Cleaning is good too.
Exactly, and I had to do that when I moved in here, because I couldn't paint, but what I just did is I focused on putting my energy into the environment, because if I keep putting more and more of my energy into it, then it becomes my own.
Right. And it's changing. It's about changing the molecule structure that is within in the building, in your items and everything else. So it's about change, and some people don't like to change. Other people do.
No, they don't. Well, not me specifically, but no, they don't. I just said, no, we don't. I can't even speak today, apparently.
Well, there are some aspects that I don't like to change, but it is good for me to change, so I have to do that. So,
like I've noticed when we don't like to change, it's usually something that we try to forget or avoid.
Well, I'm
And that's
flexible.
the thing, yeah.
I'm flexible as long as it's done my way.
Now that's the spirit. I love it.
well, I sort of kind of have to say that to a degree as well.
Me too, my dear. My way or the highway.
Close, but not quite.
I had to put a little humor in there.
You did a good job.
I'm sorry, I'd kill me.
Oh. So, well, shall we go on break? Really short break here.
Sure.
Yes, of course.
7:30. I don't even know what to do here.
Something fun and catchy.
Something fun and catchy. Oh, well, it is. I don't know. I'm looking.
Not
I'm looking.
Not a career move, Brenda.
Welcome back to Universal Journeys with your host, Dr. Reverend Brenda L. Bates, or whatever you want to call it, and Donny Winter. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. And talk about party. You asked for it. You got it.
Good.
7-850-8292. There you go, Donny. You can have back now.
Okay, so before we get started on the second segment of our okay, now I'm all slap happy now. Breathe. Okay. So before we get started on our second segment of the show, I wanted to do a quick advertisement. So if you like listening to our show, if you go to Facebook and type in Universal Journeys, you should be able to find our Facebook page. And if you click like, you'll be able to follow our daily stuff that we post on there. And we're also in the process of getting Universal Journeys up on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com and type in Universal Journeys and subscribe to our channel, you should be able to, listen to our shows through that platform as well. So,
that's funny.
Okay. So Brenda, back at you.
Okay. So I have to say that when I was trying to figure out Jack's name a little bit ago for Lessons from the Source, his name is Jack Armstrong. And I have this friend who was cyclically yelling his name, Jack! And that happens to be Jane, who is here. She texts me and she says, you must have heard me screaming his name. Because I picked up on it. That's when I told her, hey, it would be nice to have you here with us tonight. Oh, that was too funny. It's like, yep, I did hear that. Jack!
It was so funny because you said, oh, this book, and you said, Lessons from the Source, and I said, his name is Jack, and you said, oh, Jack. And I went, oh, yeah. Exactly, Brenda.
So, it works out pretty good. I can hear things that I don't even realize I'm hearing. I just get it, and it's like, oh, Jack, oh, it's out there. We need to have Jack on there one time, too. He's quite interesting, and he's fun to talk to. He's on the West Coast, though, so it's a little bit trickier sometimes.
But I think it's interesting, though, Brenda, how you and I have that connection, though, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That you would have heard me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not everyone has that type of connection. I think, Jane, you and I have it. I know Connie and I have it as well. Because I always finish her sentence or just say it before she says, and Joyce tells me, you stop that. So, and I think that's just because of the places that we've been in our lives, not necessarily together, except for when we first started out as young teenagers, but we just have that with individuals. Now, one thing I did want to mention is psychometry. Psychometry is a great explanation or great I don't know if it's an explanation or not, but it's a great way of feeling what we're talking about today about imprint, energy imprint, because you can feel people's energy imprint through psychometry. Psychometry is where you hold an item, and you can feel that item, and you can feel what was done to the item. Like I gave Donny a ring not too long ago, which I had found, but I had worn too, and that before I gave it to him, I put an impression in it of love and happiness and stuff like that. So that's something that you can do yourself too. You don't necessarily have to wear it, but you can put an imprint, an energy imprint into it and give it to someone. That's what you do when you charge a crystal. You can do the same thing as you hold it between your hands and you think when you put this energy imprint in it and you to do whatever it needs to be done. And that's called something else too. It's not necessarily energy imprinting, but the word is eluding me. You can program it. There we go. Thanks. You can program it, and you can program it to do what you want it to do. It could be a healing crystal. It could be a cleansing crystal. It could be anything like that. And you hold it in your hands, and you change that molecular structure because it's energy, and your thought is energy, and what you put in there, you're exuding that particular thought throughout your whole body into that item. Now,
yeah, I always think of it as like infusing energy into something.
Yep. It's really your wording. It's how you word it. So, and you do that every single day in your house. If you in a house, if you have harmony within the house, when you walk into it, no matter if it's kind of messy, you still feel that harmony within that house or that area. If you have hollering and bickering and fighting and chaos, you're going to feel that energy when you walk into there. You're going to like, ooh, I don't like this energy. You won't even know why you don't like it. It's like when you walk in
the house, and the house can be clean in it, and it's not about the cleanliness, it's about the energy.
Yeah, yeah, it's about the energy. Exactly. I've walked into rooms that you could cut the tension with a knife, literally. It's like, I don't think I want to be here, So that's where these little old phrases and sayings come from, cut the energy with a knife, you cut at it with a knife type of deal. Literally trying to cut it so you can get through it and things like that. So the energy imprint is in everything. Everything. It's
exactly.
in everything. Cars, if you're buying a new car, the energy imprint of the people who made it and the manufacturer, and I love that new car smell. And then when you sell it or you buy a used one, the energy imprint of that person who had it before you was in there. Not, let alone their butt print in the seat, because
kind of personal they are.
Yeah, well, if someone has a car long enough, it's going to finally fit to their, behind because you're sitting there on the seat. But still, that energy is within that car. I think that's why you have the Christine car, type of deal.
Well, regardless, a person's state of mind that has a direct influence on the environment around them. I was just thinking of the environment I was in when I was at college doing my bachelor's degree. I lived in dorms. I'm sure you can imagine where I'm going with this. So, if people are drunk, let's use that as an example. My first 2 years at school, my roommates were always going out, partying, coming home, ridiculously drunk. And for the longest time, I felt constantly disoriented. I felt aloof. I felt kind of distorted because of this, and I didn't realize it until my second year in, and I was like, I need to do something to either protect myself or put my energy into this place in order to get that, drunken energy out of there. And, I guess people don't realize that, if they're feeling something, it likely has a lot to do with the place that they're in having an influence on their feeling.
Yep, their environment, absolutely. Because you think about this, especially in a dorm or military barracks or things like that, you have the reoccurring energy. I mean, for you, it took you a year to recognize what the heck it was. And that's what happens to a sensitive. A sensitive does not know what they're picking up on. They don't realize it's not them until they actually have to sit back and say, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" You know, and that's not my stuff. And then when you realize that, then you can get rid of it. But there are a lot of sensitive people out there that do not know that they're sensitive, and so they take it on as if it's their issue, and it really isn't.
I did that for years.
Excuse me. Pardon?
I said I did that for years, took things on, and then started realizing that, that was somebody else's stuff, and I didn't need to take it.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people believe in their own ability to perceive such things. And in order to fix something like this, a person has to learn how to recognize that it's there. And really, honestly, when it comes down to it, it's basic observation in the beginning. Like, toward the beginning, it's like, what's happening in the environment? Observe what's taking place. And then go deeper. Because, I mean, normally, in most situations, you'll be able to, set off that ability to perceive this through examining the interactions of the people in the environment.
Right. Right. And it's interesting, too, because I work at a credit union, and my day could be going fine, and it's almost as if I can feel someone who's got a negative attitude or something is going wrong with them before they even get there. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm trying to swish that energy away, and it doesn't go away, and all of a sudden that individual walks in the door, and I may not know who it is because there's several people that walk in there. But I'm telling you what, it affects me, seriously, and it's hard to function within that. But I know enough to realize that it's not my stuff, and I try my darndest to get rid of it. And sometimes it's not about getting rid of it. It's sending healing, loving compassion to it so it can disperse and help that individual. And I think I had the other day a gentleman who I picked up before he got there, and he came to my window, and I took care of him. But after he left, it felt like my heart was going to burst. So, and it was I was having a hard time, and I knew it wasn't me, and I knew it had to be him. So what I did is I sent him some healing energy, and it took me almost a half an hour after he left to get rid of that feeling. It was not fun. And we literally take it on as if it is ours. A sensitive, they take on the other person's emotions, their hurts, their anxieties, everything else. They're agitating things, and it's just, you just take it on and you don't know why. And I have someone that Donny knows, and he said it to us. It's like, oh, well, you just don't have to, you can just get rid of it. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to take it on. I'm thinking, you are so full of yourself. You have no idea. And before you're already taken on, before you even realize what it is or whose it is, and if it's not yours, then you got it. I mean, he was just a bonehead. I'm just saying, he was a bonehead. He's still that way.
It took so much restraint to not facepalm in that instance, because I was like, holy hell, what is going on here?
And part of the thing is he's not a sensitive, so he doesn't know that. He looks at everything logically, and it doesn't always work that way. And that's part of the issue with sensitive people, is if they're around people who are logical and they don't feel that, it's hard for that sensitive to be able to be open enough to do that, to realize that, because like, oh, it's just in your head. Oh, you can do this. You can. No. Not until you recognize what it is for what it is.
Right. Well, and the thing is, my theory about people who rely solely on logic I've noticed that they are the more avoidant types of people because they use logic to prevent themselves from feeling and dealing with their emotions. This isn't every person because most people who are logical have a feasible balance between logic and expression. But those individuals like who we're talking about, Brenda, completely use logic as a cloak. Logic is their protection. But they don't realize that it's just damaging them more so in the long run because, I mean, if you stop expressing, what's going to happen? You stop being who you are.
But unfortunately, when you get down to it, Donny, that's their mask.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the mask that they've learned to put on to dissociate with whatever it is that their life has made them deal with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You know, so because we've all got our stuff, and you know, that's their way of dealing with it is to go about it in that way and just avoid feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And that's true. The thing is, though, I know that we at times push our stuff onto people like that, but for the most of the time, though, they always push their stuff onto us, stating that we're wrong and they're right, and that's not always the case, especially when it comes to sensitive people. And the thing is Donny and I both recognize that he doesn't have the same abilities that we do, so we acknowledge that, yes, this is true for him, but it's not true for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And unfortunately, people that are like that usually don't back down.
No.
You know,
I'm definitely not.
You know, I'm right. This is just the way it is, and whatever you say is wrong. And unfortunately, the people who are sensitives, it's not that we back down or we give up. We are more apt to just say, okay, I don't have to be right.
Yeah.
You don't have to know. You know, it's not that I don't have to voice that I'm right. I don't have to prove to you that I'm right. I have nothing to prove.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in their case, they have to try and prove to you that they're right, and in doing so, they'll just keep stomping until they get their way.
Well, and in doing so, when they do that, they're also doing it to prove to themselves that they are above you in some way. Because a lot of people who continually push are always trying to make a statement, like an underlying statement, along with the point that they're trying to make. And I think that that goes back to that whole logical cloak at the same time, too, because they want you to see one aspect of them, and they're hoping that aspect of them will distract you from seeing what's really going on beneath the surface.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we encounter that a lot from people because we live in a society where secrets are okay, where it's okay to say one thing and mean something completely different. If we all just, if we were truthful from the get-go, not only verbally but also psychically, then a lot of conflict would not exist. There wouldn't be this need to raise oneself on a pedestal and, drag other people down. It would just simply be an exchange of truths,
Yeah, because what people don't realize, who are like that, is that just because somebody has a different opinion than you doesn't make them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that they're trying to make you wrong. They just have a different opinion.
Right. Right.
And people, there's so many people who don't understand that there can be, that, two people can actually be right.
Exactly. Well, and we are always torn on this dichotomy between right and wrong, true or false, when in all actuality there are many truths and there are many falsehoods.
Yeah.
And the thing is that a lot of people don't respect each other's different perspectives. And these people who try to force it on others, at the bottom of it all, they're trying to force their own psychic imprint on you without even realizing it. Because I know when I first started working at the coffee shop, and Brenda probably remembers this because this is around the time when I first met her, if a regular customer came in and said something that completely invalidated me in every way, it completely destroyed my day. Yeah. It destroyed my day. And they don't realize that they're, not only are they verbally trying to put me down, but psychically they're doing the same thing. It's just it depends on whether or not a person is aware of that. Yeah. And most people, like a few individuals that I know, aren't aware of that whatsoever.
That's true.
That's true. That's true.
And I think that's what makes it so destructive.
And I know that we, as ourselves, sometimes can get that way, too. I mean, it's like, look, you're not seeing the picture here. And it's hard. It can be a challenge, and it is.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's a challenge, but what makes us a bit different, though, is that we're aware of disagreeing with them without, projecting at them at the same time. Projecting that negativity at them at the same time.
Right.
But Jane, were you going to say something?
Yeah. Hello, Jane. Are you there?
Jane, are you there? Oh, okay. I was like, oh my God, I cut off Jane. I'm so sorry.
No, you cut off Brenda.
Oh God, Brenda, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. It's all good.
You guys were all quiet. It's like, come on, guys, somebody talk.
Yeah, we were just like, wait, who? What?
That's funny.
Anywho, what were we saying now?
I don't know, but I can tell you right now, though, it's time for another break. And welcome back to Universal Journeys. We left you kind of there open air for a little bit. We got talking in the back office back there, and so, Donny, you have a plug that you want to plug there?
I so have a plug. As most of you know, if you listen to the show, you know that I have my own YouTube channel and I do a lot of different activist-oriented things on there. Lately, I've been doing a video series titled Bullying, My Story of Survival, and I basically have been going through and sharing a lot of my bullying experiences because I have not really taken the time to sit down to go through them like this. So if you're interested, if you can relate to this type of thing, if you go to youtube.com and type in Donny Winter, it's DONNY, and subscribe to my channel, you'll be able to watch those videos. So if you would like, feel free to do that. Back at you, Brenda, here.
Oh, no, not back at me. We're going to hand this over to Jane.
Oh,
Jane, you had some really interesting stuff that you were talking about in the back office. So I would like for you to the back office there. So I would like for you to kind of bring it out so everyone else could listen and hear about this stuff too.
Yeah, I was talking about you're talking about the energy imprint of people, and the one thing that we hadn't brought up yet is when we go out to eat in a restaurant, you sit in the booth and how many times the people that have sat in that booth cycle through, and how much energy has been in that booth and what has happened, what kind of conversations have occurred in that booth. Something that we don't think about when we go sit in that booth. And and share a meal. And then on top of that, you think about the food that we're going to eat and the person in the kitchen that's making it and what kind of mood they're in. And what kind of things they're going through in their life. You know, if you've had a situation where you felt like maybe you had food poisoning, or got sick at a restaurant or from restaurant food or something, you know, there's the possibility that it may not have been, you know, necessarily the food poisoning. It could very well have just been the energy from the person who made your food. Maybe that person was having a really crappy day, going through something really awful in their life at this particular moment. You know, there's so many different things energetically that are, you know, because making food is another creative outlet.
Yeah.
And you know, and to think about, you know, we're nourishing our body with this. To me, that's one of the ultimate creative outlets, when somebody is preparing it and then somebody is consuming it. You know, it's not only a gift that we're giving away, it's something that this person is actually consuming and nourishing their bodies with. And somebody who's not careful with their energy or thoughtful with their energy, who's cooking the food, doesn't realize that the mood that they're in is affecting every single one of those people that they're feeding out there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know?
And that's true. And you think about the energy, too, is every time we pray over the food, we're really releasing that energy that someone, say like that, which has issues or being negative and stuff like that, has placed into that food. And you don't have to pray like, you know, normal people would pray. I mean, you could do it however you want. And for me, I always say, Lord, please change this food into energy for the mind, body, and spirit, you know, and I have my hands over top, and at the same time, I'm sending energy to that food to change the molecular structure of it. So, I mean, it really is up to you and how you do that. So praying over it, definitely. Jane, now that you said that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how many times have I felt icky when I've got done eating stuff?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I've never really thought of that, but, you know, that's very thought-provoking, because, I mean, I've had instances where I've gone to places and I have felt, you know, almost like something was dragging me down after going to the place. And I never really took into consideration, you know, maybe it has a lot to do with the people surrounding me, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, you know, and when you go out to a restaurant, I mean, there's a lot of hands that are involved in making your food. Even like if you're the people, like if you have a chicken or something like that, look at how many, where did the chicken come from? Mm-hmm. How was the chicken raised? You know, this is what it gets to on your table too at home. But you know, you think you can really go back and really think about this. How was this chicken raised? Where was it raised? How was it? Trying to think of a nice way of putting this.
Prepared.
How was it brought to? Yeah, how was it prepared? But how was it brought to the point where, I hate to say slaughtered, but you know, I guess that's the word. There's really not a nice way to say it. Mm-hmm. And then what about the factory? What about the factory that does this? What about the factory that freezes it? What about the factory? You know, all these people. It goes through so many hands. Then it goes to the restaurant. Then it goes to the cook. Then it goes to the server. You know, there's so many people so many hands that are involved in the food that we eat, that we just really take it for granted. And like I said, to me, that's one of the ultimate ways of the creative imprint of how of giving and receiving gifts.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I guess my question would be, when we go into places like this, how do we prepare ourselves for it?
We probably don't. I mean, we don't. We don't prepare ourselves for that.
But is it possible to?
Yeah, praying over your food would be a good start.
Well, does it just have to be praying over food, or can it be like, mental preparation or something like that? Because, I mean, I rarely pray over my food.
Well, and I can't say that I do all the time, but that is one way. I mean, you can mentally prepare yourself, but what are you mentally preparing yourself for? Where when you have the food, you can do something with the food.
This is true.
And all you have to do is have a thought, okay, you're cleansed, poop gone. I mean, that's a simplified way. If you have enough mental energy or mental thought to be able to do that so quickly, then you can do that and it won't bother you, or it shouldn't bother you. But most people have to think about it. They have to sit down there and they have to put their hands on it, or they pray over it, or just put your hands over it. You don't have to pray, just put your hands over it and just send cleansing, healing energy to it so that you can eat it. I mean, I just said pray because that was just the form that most people use when consuming food. Or
yeah, that's the word that people can relate to.
Right.
True.
So I mean, it really is up to you on how you do that. I mean, that's the only way that I could think of preparing, because you're going there because you're hungry. So
remember, Brenda, also when we were talking about, our auras and our protective, bubbles that we have, for me, I would go in prepared that way, because if I'm in my own space, filled with my own energy, then I am protected from, the energy and the rest of the place. I mean, except for my food, which I'll be consuming, but I mean, when it comes to food, like we were talking about, one can cleanse that in a different way.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Definitely something to think about. I mean, that's pretty deep stuff there.
Mhm.
Now,
have you guys ever had an experience where you've gone out to a public place and you've been significantly influenced by someone around you or someone who had gone through there? I mean, I know we were talking about the instances of you at the credit union, Brenda. Jane, have you had any, I keep getting tongue-tied. Have you ever had any situations where you have been influenced in this way?
It's funny because, like you were talking about being influenced by the planter pots. Not necessarily influenced per se, but how you were saying that planter pot has to go, kind of thing.
Mhm.
I had mentioned months ago when I was on the show with you about how I feel with homes or with antiques or with a lot of different things. I mean, I have a difficult time sometimes going into antique shops. I really have to prepare myself to go into an antique shop. Because there's so many different things. When I was pregnant with my daughter, who's now 22, my sister, who lives in Albany, New York, brought me this beautiful antique rocker, which was, I'm very grateful. But the energy of that rocker, to me, was horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
And before I had my baby, I had to figure out how to get rid of this energy of this rocker. So I sat in it, and but I mean, there was something, and I don't even really know. Like, I don't know if somebody died in the rocker, or somebody was shot in the rocker, or I saw a gun, and I saw somebody, and so something happened. But it was interesting. I did get rid of the negative energy and was able to use the rocker, and I used the rocker with both my daughter and my son when he was born then too. But yeah, I feel with inanimate objects a lot.
Definitely.
You just brought up. Yeah, you just brought up something there, Jane. How would that, if you had to sit in it to get rid of the energy, which is normally how I do it, it's kind of tough sometimes. But if you're sitting in it and you're pregnant and trying to get rid of this, what effects does it have on the children, your unborn children that are inside?
Now that you mentioned that, this is interesting because this didn't dawn on me until you just said this. My daughter is, like I said, she's 22 now. She is a tough girl. She's always been a tomboy. But she is she's just finished getting her associate degree. She's going to school to get a criminal justice degree.
Mm-hmm.
She did her internship this last summer with a police department, and I was really astonished with some of the things that she was telling me that she was able to witness.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was cool in one aspect. I say that only because I've said to people my whole life, to people who are like firefighters or policemen or different things like that, even military people, I'm so glad that there's people like you in this world because I know that I'm not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that there's people who can do what you do because I know that I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that my daughter is one of those people. And, the fact that I saw Gun, she's always shot guns with her dad and stuff like that, and now she's going into a profession where she's going to carry a gun. Well, it's kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that all of them have that type of influence on it, but
no.
But what if it did? What if it was, say, a former military person or a former police officer or something like that who may, say, have passed away in that particular chair, and all the things that they've seen and stuff like that? Because you're looking at we're looking at a couple different aspects.
Yes.
Because it's all about energy, and that's a form of energy, and you would take that on, especially if you received it while you were pregnant, and you transform the energy while you were pregnant. So your body's still doing what it needs to do to transform it, but it's also transforming whatever it is. The energy was touched that child. I mean, you're protecting it while it's in the womb, but it's still affecting everything.
You know, and it's something else I was
thought.
and something else I was just thinking about too is when my daughter was born, she had colic very, very bad, and was in a lot of pain. And I think that that's kind of interesting. I can remember sitting up with her at night and coming and leaning my arm over I'd fall asleep, I'd have my head on the side of the crib and have my hand on her belly and be rubbing her belly, and my head would be on the side of the crib, and I'd be rubbing her belly, and I'd actually fall asleep with my head standing up, with my head on the side of the crib, rubbing her belly.
Uh-huh. Well, see, in the umbilical cord is where that energy would come in to get into the body of the baby.
Right.
So you're rubbing that area.
Right.
Just a thought. I mean, it's an interesting thought. It's just a thought.
Sure.
Well,
it's a thought for everyone out there.
It all comes down to imprinting, and I always equate imprinting with projecting as well, because what we're doing is I was kind of thinking back on, how we like to create things for people. When we are imprinting, we're basically projecting our energy as an object, and that object stores that energy. So is it possible, not is it possible, because I already know this, but it is also possible for us to project that energy at other people and try to force them to contain it too.
Oh, yeah.
And try to what?
Yeah. Force them to contain our imprint as well, which is never a good thing. And it just that brought it to my mind, because sitting in this chair, like, that's kind of a forced imprint when we are, taking it in, and we're not aware of it necessarily at that moment in time.
Well, and it goes back to, your thought. Even, you could project your own energy and your thought into someone else. That's like Jane. We'll give Jane an example. Like Jane sending me this name. Jack, it's Jack. His name is Jack. That's sending an imprint, an energy imprint.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So we really need to be careful as human beings on how we do certain things or how we think. And I can tell you that I've used it. There are people in front of me driving down the road and their blinker lights on and they're not turning. And I just like a loving thought, like, look down at your blinker light, look down at your blinker light, look down at your blinker light. Sometimes it takes a little while, but they get it and they turn it off. So, and sometimes, depending on the individual, it's like right there. It's like, oh, yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and sometimes, like, I know when I'm driving, sometimes I have to be careful what I put out there, because I can get a little irritated when I'm driving.
Oh, no.
Just a little bit irritated. And I remember there was this one day, this person it was a similar situation where they weren't turning, and I shouted, I was like, holy hell, will you turn? And he then turned as soon as I said that and nearly got sideswiped by someone speeding. And I was like, oh my God, Donny, calm down, don't provoke anything. Oh my goodness.
That's to show you awareness and how powerful our thoughts are.
Learned that.
If you develop your capacity to a certain degree, you can influence others. And you really need to be careful with that. Mm-hmm. We need to be careful with that.
In June, I was driving across state. My daughter graduated from college, and I was driving home from Muskegon. And rather than take the highway, I took the M57, which comes all the way across from Grand Rapids all the way to the Flint area, and it's a 2-lane road all the way across. And as long as there's no traffic, it's a it's a great ride.
Mm-hmm.
But you get somebody in front of you who decides to go kind of slow when you're going 55 and they want to go 52. It's like, no, I don't want to go 52. I want to go 55.
No, I want to go 60. Forget about the 52 or 55.
No kidding. So I'm driving down the road, and I'll tell you what, I went from Grand Rapids all the way across the state this way, just very, very politely. I didn't say anything. I was just quiet the whole way. I don't listen to the radio in the car hardly ever.
I don't either. I don't either.
I'm just sitting here, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's time for you to get off the road now. It's time for you to turn. And then within the next couple of minutes, that person would put on the blinker and turn. And I'd say, thank you very much. Have a nice day. And they'd go the other way.
There you
and then
go.
A little while later, I'd come up behind somebody else, and rather than think to myself, oh, son of a bitch, or so, excuse me for saying that, but rather than getting upset about and just think and getting frustrated about coming up behind somebody again, I just think, okay, that's time for you to go too. And then we'd be in the middle of a field or something, there'd be no place to turn or something, and all of a sudden they'd put on their blinker, and I'm thinking, where in the heck are you turning? And then all of a sudden they're turning down this 2-track or something where it's this real long driveway. It's oh, okay, I can turn there. It's oh my goodness, this is just so cool. I came all the way across the state like that, and everybody got out of my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was so cool.
So our mental faculties are very strong, and we just have to realize that what we put out there, we can change or we can affect people unknowingly. And people affect us unknowingly. You just have to be aware of it.
It's all about awareness.
It's all about the bass, No treble.
All right. Okay, I have another cool story to tell you.
Ooh, okay.
When, you'll love this one too. When my daughter was little, she was maybe about a year and a half or 2 years old, and she wanted to come out of her room at night, and she wasn't, she just thought that since she could get up and come out of bed, that she could come out of her room, and she wanted to know what was going on, and we had to end up putting a lock on the outside of her door because she would just get up, and after we'd put her to bed, and we were trying to teach her, no, once you go to bed, it's time for bed. Mm-hmm. So we put a lock on the outside of her door. Well, we were just 10 feet away in the other room, in the living room. That's, we weren't sleeping, obviously. But she would come and try to open the door, and she would start screaming and screaming. And I mean, at the top of her lungs, like somebody was just screaming, holy hell, like you were saying. And it was just oh my gosh, and it hurt me so bad to hear my little girl screaming like that. And I would go and I would sit on the porch this one night. I mean, it had been 4 or 5 days. We were trying to teach her. It had been 4 or 5 days. She had been screaming like this every night. So the 5th day, I'm sitting on the front porch. It's summertime. I'm sitting on the front porch, and I'm covering my eyes, and tears are coming down my face, and I'm just thinking, oh, geez, just please, just show me the light. Just tell me that this is going to be all right. Just show me the light. Oh, geez, just show me the light. And I took my hands off my eyes, and all of a sudden the whole yard was filled with lightning bugs.
Wow. Oh, my gosh. That is so fascinating.
Isn't it cool?
I love that. Cool.
Yep. And I went, thank you.
Well, see, and that's the thing, too, is always say thank you. I mean, that's, when you ask for something like that, just say thank you. And I mean, it's just 2 words, thank you. Yeah. But the meaning behind it, that's a different story.
Yeah.
I always try to be thankful.
Yep.
It's almost just like that one story that you told that one time, Brenda, about the answer of whether or not I think it was to buy your business.
Oh, was it that?
I think it was that, possibly.
Remind me. I remember.
It was the one. It was the optimist one, I think. Where
yeah, I was gonna say I remember that one.
Yeah, it was that. It was the sign that you got when you were like, "Should I do this or shouldn't I?" Give me a sign, and you were given a sign, and.
Well, and that was quite interesting, and I don't know if did I tell it on the air though. I don't know if I told it on the air.
I want to hear.
Yeah, okay. Share it again. I'm not sure if you did or not.
Okay, so last year about this time, maybe a little bit earlier than this, I belong to the Optimist Club, the local Optimist Club here, and we have a new president every year, and no one was volunteering to be the president because it can be a difficult and trying and challenging thing, but it also could be very rewarding. So at one of the board meetings, because I'm a board member, at one of the board meetings, the president stopped me before I got out the door, and she said, Gary and I have been thinking that you would make a really great president. You know, we both were, agreed to this, and we really do think that you have the abilities and capabilities to be able to do this. And I'm like, no, I can't because I'm way too busy. I mean, I'm doing the show and I'm doing my other business, the psychic business, and things like that. And plus, I'm working at the credit union and blah blah blah, all the rest of the stuff. So I'm like, no, and I'm like shaking to beat the band inside. I'm all nervous, and I'm like, I have to get up in front of everybody and talk. I just can't do that. So I went through all that. She kept on. I'm like, and the only thing I could think of to say to get the heck out of there was, let me think about it, and I'll get back with you. And she's like, okay. So I walk out the door. I'm shaking inside. My whole body feels like it's in an electrical outlet. But I'm like, type of thing. So the only thing I can think of is, and it's early, so I have enough time before I actually have to be to work. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to the local Tim Hortons, and I'm going to stop in and get a cup of coffee to calm down and stuff like that. Well, I left the place where we had the meeting. I drove in the direction of Tim Hortons. I went right by Tim Hortons and drove into the outlet center where I used to work, parking lot. I drove through, and I'm thinking, man, I just can't do this. This is not going to be good, and I'm not going to have time, and I have to put my own business on the side, that type of business anyways, on the side, and I won't be able to do and put the time and effort in that I need to and things like that. And and then I drove back out. Well, on the way back, and I had plenty of time again, like I said, I was driving down the road to work, and I said, okay, God, I'm throwing it up in the air. If my hands could have been up in the air, they would have been. At least one of them was. And I said, okay, God, here you go. If this is something that you really want me to do, give me a sign. I'm kind of left at that. And I'm like, wait. You better not. If you're going to give me a sign, give me a sign that I am not going to miss, because I've missed so many in the past. Because I've been able to overtake it and get out of it and like, oh, no, that really wasn't a sign. But give me a sign. This is really what you want me to do. So, like I said, I was early getting to work. I parked my car, sitting in my car, and I'm looking at my Facebook feed. Okay, I'm like, yeah, I got time to look at that. And somebody had posted something to my personal timeline. Not the regular feed, but my personal timeline. And it was a picture with 3 words. And the picture was like mountains coming down to a peak at the bottom, coming up toward the top, kind of an angle and back down. And behind it was a cloud formation, and behind the cloud formation was the sun. Well, with all of that, it made the shape of a heart. Okay? I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. That's a sign. And then the 3 words said, begin with yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah, well, when I was saying that, I'm thinking, yeah, he's not going to give me anything that quick. I know that, type of deal, so I'm good. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. That was pretty cool. But once I saw that, and I said, I got it. All of my nervousness, all the anxiety and everything just left my body. Well,
cool.
That wasn't the end. Okay? Oh. That wasn't the end because I went in to work and I was starting to fill out the email and everything else to tell this gal that I was going to accept the position as president. And I ran out of time. So I'm like, okay, this is another test. If I'm still feeling the same way at lunchtime, I'll go ahead and send this. But if I'm not, that means I'm just going to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, lunchtime came around. I felt the same. And I finished with the email and I sent it. And lo and behold, I became the president of the Optimist Group this year. I have enjoyed it. There have been struggles, ups and downs, but for the most part, we have a really good group of people, and they know what they're doing. So God put me in the right place in the right time, and I began with yes. The first several weeks was scary because being up in front of the pillars of the community was a little tough for me. But after that, I was like, I got this.
Good
I
for
got
you.
this. So that was one of those things as a sign, and that was my sign. It was a good sign, and it's gotten me quite far. So now I'm standing up and speaking in front of 2 other places and giving invocations. One is going to be at the convention, the Optimist Convention here in September, or this month actually. So I have to come up with an invocation. And that's the pillars of all of those communities. So that's quite an interesting, influential individual.
That's awesome.
And then another one a little bit later this month. And then for the winter ball here that we had in West Branch, I was also asked to do the invocation as well. And that was definitely up in front of the pillars of the community who you don't normally see. So it's a step forward. I don't know where I'm going with this, with being in front of so many people and doing these things. I have no idea what God has planned for me in the future, but I do know that I'm going to begin with yes, because that's the message.
That should be something that's on your wall there, right in front of your desk.
Yeah,
I actually have that picture on my wall, framed, with the Optimist logo and my business logo, both on the glass.
Perfect.
I also believe that people from the other side can also leave imprints. And this is actually kind of inspired by an extremely, extremely vivid dream that I had last night. And I get really vivid dreams frequently, but I don't remember all of them in precise detail. But this one, I remember in precise detail, and I will share it. So in my dream, I was walking toward my house and my grandma's house from the woods. And it was the morning. It was slightly cloudy, but it was those really wispy, low-hanging clouds that linger after rain, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I walked all the way up this road, and I saw that my grandma had planted a garden, and the garden was planted very late, around this time of year actually, but it was still growing, and I remember digging the top of the soil, and I let the plants, the plants were growing, but they were beneath the soil, so I freed them from the soil, and I remember that she was watering the plants, but the water was just running down the hill and filtering around the area where my garden was. And I remember waking up from that, and I was just like, my grandma's still with me. here I've been feeling alone because I just moved back and realized that I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, really stuck with me. I was just like, wow, that was so vivid. Like, I literally woke up and I was like, I need to write this down. I need to write it.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those type of dreams are totally awesome. I love them when they occur. I wish that they would occur more often for me.
So your grandma is supporting you and helping you grow.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it was very reassuring. And I think that we need to realize that messages can come when we least expect them. Imprints can occur to us, or we can, and put them on other people when we least expect it. So we need to be aware. Awareness is the theme of the night.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, indeed it is. So, I don't know, but the imprinting can occur anytime, and obviously even when we're sleeping, because Grandma left her imprint on you, just like others who have gone before us have left their imprint on us. So we have left our imprint on them as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
That says a lot. I mean, it really does. It's really kind of cool.
It is. Kind of surreal, too, but...
Kind of is there. You're rude. Well, and I think, too, with leaving the imprint like that, I mean, Jane, do you think that that's possible to imprints on each other? That's why we can do and connect with one another the way we do?
Say that again. The phone cut out.
Oh, sorry, I moved. Is it possible that we've imprinted each other with our energy so much so that we can pick up on stuff, say like when you were saying Jack's name, type of deal. It's Jack.
Yeah.
And then I say that. I mean...
Yes. Definitely.
I mean, because that's another way of thinking about it, too. Even the Carl Jung, where you have this informational, energy above your head, and you can reach up and pull that information out. But I think this could be also coined as something like that as well.
Yeah, I think that you and I have a connection, just like you said that you and Connie do. But because you and I have done that before. With even, you've contacted me and said just contacted me out of the blue and said, okay, what is it? Why do you need me, or something like that? It's like,
right,
wow.
Right. I have done with people too. I mean, I have a friend, Kathy. I've done that too as well, and so. Well, I was just thinking about you. I'm like, yeah, well, stop thinking so hard because I got it.
I know, right?
But, the thing is that sometimes with something like that, sometimes we just say, no, that's nothing. That's just my thought type of deal. When the reality is not necessarily your thought. It is them trying to get a message to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have worked a lot of years to try to develop that aspect. Now, I've tried to develop my telepathy as to be able to hear it. I don't necessarily receive stuff by hearing it. I get imprinted upon, if you want to call it that, because I am an empath. And so I just sense things or feel things, and that's how it works for me. Other people can hear voices. I mean, I do every once in a while, but that's not a strong suit for mine. That's not my strong ability.
Mm-hmm.
My ability is more the empathic ability of sensing things and feeling things.
Mm-hmm. Same here. I always
think
I feel the emotion and the different energies around me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because energy is connected to emotion. So.
Right. And then sometimes people like us, I don't want to stop feeling my emotion because it's mine, dang it. But Donny, you're good at that. You're good at picking up what's wrong, Brenda. And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I want to do this. And then I'll tell you, oh, nothing, and you know it's not right.
Yeah, I know. Like, I know you're always like, and, I'm like, right,
yeah.
Nice try.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna send you a picture every time with me going, on it.
But sometimes when I'm asked those questions, I don't know how to respond. I don't know how to articulate what is inside of me that needs to come out and be fixed. That's part of the issue.
And I completely get that. I'm in the same way too. Like, sometimes you have to ponder it for a while and reflect on it before you can begin to understand or even fix it. It's a process.
That's it.
Or even to talk to somebody about it, because it's like, okay, I sort of kind of know what I'm feeling. I don't know how to articulate how I'm feeling, which is kind of a weird thing, but it does happen.
Yeah, It's like, just let me process this for a little while, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Normally, by the time I process it, I need your help anyway, so. Okay, thanks. That's too funny.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things ever.
So, yeah, that's because I gave it to you.
You imprinted it on me.
I did, and my little nephew imprinted it on me.
Oh, no, that's a completely different level of That's like a festive.
It was too funny. Oh, see, and that's another form of imprinting, because he imprinted that on me. It's like, okay, that whatever it was, it kind of connected with me, and I liked it, so now I do it.
That's right.
Which is kind of weird, but hey.
I had a girlfriend that I used to work with that something that she used to say all the time. She'd say, I know, right? And she used to say it all the time, and when she first started saying it, it was like, that doesn't even make sense that she'd say, I know, right? But I say it all the time now.
I know, right? Right what?
I know.
You know what?
Yeah, I know, right?
I know.
For me, I do, a lot of people, wow, I need to, just situate my mouth because I cannot say words today. People, I'm always listening to what they're saying, and a lot of, phrases will be imprinted on me, I know, right, is one of them. Lately, it's been, I can't even, I just can't even, acting as though even is some sort of action. But it's been, a really common saying nowadays. So I've just been saying it when I can't deal with something.
I can't even think about that right now.
One of my big things lately has been seriously.
Me too. Yep.
One word, but it says so much.
Yeah. Well, and it's the connotation that comes behind it or with it, that emotion is like, seriously? You just said that to me? Seriously? Oh, come on,
right?
Seriously.
For me, it's been sweet Jesus.
Holy hell is been a good one for you for tonight. You said that several times tonight, holy hell.
Yeah, that's one of the words.
Yeah, definitely.
That is way too funny. Way too funny. So there are many different ways that we can be imprinted by energies, either by ourselves or from other people, or from the things that they leave, the energy that they leave in certain items. We just have to be aware that those things that we feel or experience are not necessarily ours. That is always the challenge with everything, is recognizing what is ours and what isn't. And then figuring out how to fix it helps, once you start that process. But that's always been a big challenge for me, and at times still is, because some of the energy that I come in contact with, or anybody comes in contact with, is very strong. And so sometimes you just have to go with it and flick, 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 flick. I always flick the energy off, or try to, or just send love out, like push it out of me and send it back with loving care and stuff like that to the individual. So we just have to be really aware and focused, and especially with our own words, our own thoughts, and how we take things. I mean, that's always an issue too, how we take other people's stuff. So, but it's just we have to be conscious of what we say and how we say it and who we say it to. Once we do that, then it helps. It helps in the long run. It does. Also helps us to be more humble, believe it or not. What do you guys think about that one?
I definitely think it helps keeps us humble. Because the more we're aware, the more we introspect, and the more that we are capable of, understanding how energy functions around us, understanding how people function around us.
Well, a lot of it too, I notice people don't like to take responsibility for their own actions. And this is one of those things that people have to learn to take responsibility of, because what comes out of the mouth is yours. It's nobody else's. So the only one that can take responsibility for what comes out of your mouth is you.
Mm-hmm. Not only just what comes out of our mouths, but what comes out of our energy and our aura. And
Yep. Well, as you say that too there, sometimes what we put out there and sometimes what we get back is the same thing we put out there, and we wonder what the heck happened. It's like, okay, what did you think about? What did you put out there prior to this? You're receiving back what you put out there. So what is your responsibility in all of this matter? You really have to think about that. People don't like doing that. People like being aware of their own stuff.
Because it reveals truths that they may not want to accept.
Yeah. For me, when that happens, I was like, oh, darn it. I remember that. Dang it.
I thought of another way of imprinting that we hadn't discussed yet.
Okay.
And that is when we write a letter to someone.
Mm-hmm. Or email.
Mm-hmm. Or email. But, when we write a letter to someone, we're using our hand to write it. And I think that there's there's a lot in that. And then the reader reads that from your hand. Right. But I'm thinking in particular, what made me think of that is I was looking across the room at a letter that my son wrote to me back in 2013 that I'll keep for the rest of my life. But he wrote it to me, and he was telling me how thankful he is that everything that I've done for him and stuff. And it was an extremely touching letter. And although I knew prior to that how he felt about me, we'd talked and things like that, but that the letter and what he said in the letter kind of...
Okay, Jane, I'm going to have to cut you short there because we're getting down right to the wire here, and I do need to make a plug. And let's make a plug real quick if I can. We have other programs on this station. And the first Sunday, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Yes. Beyond Smoke and Mirrors, Monday nights, 9 to 11. Sacred Journeys, Tuesdays, 7 to 9. Mystical Awakenings is Wednesday night, 7 to 9. True Paranormal is Friday, 7 to 9. And right here on this Mystical Awakenings Radio, you'll catch it all. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you very much for coming.